I made a video the other day about some of my worst mistakes learning Japanese. And a lot of people ask, well, okay, that's what didn't work. What did work? What would you recommend doing instead of all those things? Before I tell you what I would do, I just want to make it clear that I'm not telling you what you should do. This is what I would do if I could start over today. And if I had zero knowledge of Japanese tomorrow morning and I wanted to learn it again, this is what I would do. But what you should do is probably going to be a little different because everyone's journey is a little different. In short, it's pretty simple. There's 3 steps. Number 1, I would set aside 1 hour every day. That is an absolutely sacred time of the day for me, my sacred study hour, if you will. And during that hour, I would go to a place that I love to go, my study sanctuary, if you will. And every day I'd go there for that hour and I would do my core studies. So to do this, you need to figure out the time and the place. For me, first thing when I wake up in the morning usually works best. And the place that I always want to go and I'm very consistent about going to is a cafe. So, I wake up, roll out of bed, put on a sweatshirt, go to a cafe, sit down for my 1 hour of my most cherished study time and study. Now that I have kids and stuff, it's not always that easy to do that kind of thing. But when I was able to do that, it was the period of time in which I had the most improvement in my Japanese and the most consistent improvement over a period of time, about 2 years. I'd, get a big iced coffee, maybe like a bagel or something. I'd put on some headphones and listen to music. And if I was being really serious, I would only listen to music during that study hour because I love listening to music like a lot of human beings. And I would just dive into some Japanese and just really enjoy putting some new language into my brain. That is my study hour. That's number 1. Number 2, during my sacred study hour, I would only study my core study material. Obviously for me, this would be Native Shark because I've dedicated a large portion of my adult life to making it the best study material for exactly this type of studying consistently about, 40 minutes to an hour per day, day after day, year after year. But, I'm a founder of Native Shark and I work there. So obviously I'm going to recommend it. And that doesn't mean that you should use it necessarily. So later in the video, I'll explain a different way you could have a core study material that's not Native Shark. Next, number 3, outside of that study hour, I would do all the things. I would watch YouTube videos like this where people are just talking about learning Japanese, but they're not actually teaching you any. Although I am going to teach some at the end of this video because that's the rule for my channel. I'd get some workbooks and do those, maybe some textbooks even and do the workbook with the textbook. I'd find some language exchange partners on one of those apps where you can meet Japanese people. I'd get a tutor maybe and talk to a tutor. I would listen to Japanese music and maybe try to learn some of the lyrics. I'd watch some TV shows. And if I really liked one, I might try to find out what a character is saying at one point and, try to learn that. I might spend all afternoon trying to pull the dialogues off of a video game I like just so I can figure out what they're saying. I might pull the audio from a line of dialogue from something and put it on loops and go for a walk and listen to it over and over again to improve my pronunciation.
それは必要ないわ。損失の埋め合わせはする。それは必要ないわ。損失の埋め合わせはする。それは必要ないわ。損失の埋め合わせはする。
I'd write a journal. I might even get like a kanji workbook and practice writing characters for fun with a really nice pen that I love to write and a notebook that is just really wonderful in my hands. I'd go on Google Maps and go on Street View and look at some random neighborhood in Japan. And then I'd find a restaurant in one of those random neighborhoods. And then I'd try to go find the menu online and I would try to read that. I would do just all the things that you can do that's just so fun to explore in a language. And I would quit every single one of those things the moment I lost interest in them because this is not my sacred study hour. This is all the other hours when I'm just trying to, have fun with the language and just try to really explore it because that's fun for me. I'm not doing like reviews or like any app or something where I have to show up every day. If I chose an app to use for a core study material, I would do it during that 1 hour, but I'm not doing anything where there's like pressure to do it during basically all the hours of the day, except for my one very important study hour. And maybe you're thinking like, yeah, but I'm super motivated to learn Japanese, so I could study 4 hours per day. And that's why I need 4 sacred study hours, not just 1 and then a bunch of random stuff that's fun and unorganized. And I just would challenge my former self or my self tomorrow who forgot Japanese to not think about how motivated you are right now. Think about sustaining this study path for maybe 10 years, 20 years, the rest of your life. Everyone's goals are different. Some people will have a goal where they'll get to the level of Japanese they want in a couple of years. For me, it's something of a passion. I want to get to a really high level, which means I'm going to need to sustain my studies for a long period of time. So I want to have something that I can sustain for a long period of time. And I can't sustain 3 to 4 hours every day for a long period of time. I just can't. Even 1 hour a day is going to not be done consistently. Like I'm going to miss days here and there. That's not a big deal if I'm mostly consistent. The main thought here is I don't want Japanese to turn into a chore. The biggest danger of me not learning it would be that I quit studying. I mean, yeah, if you do totally inefficient and ineffective study methods, you will kind of plateau at weird levels and not make progress. But I could also worry about improving the efficiency of my study methods when I'm just messing around outside my study hour, and I would get better. So yeah. 1 hour of my sacred study time, a core study material that I use during that hour, and then lots of just fun that's all messy and all over the place the rest of the day, as much as I can maintain interest and motivation to do. And I would keep doing those 3 things until I reached a level that I was satisfied with, basically a level that like where I'm at right now, where I can just continue to maintain my level and even get a little bit better just by like making YouTube videos and playing games and reading books and stuff like that. Okay, I mentioned native shark earlier, but let's pretend that doesn't exist or that you just don't want it for whatever reason, because that's cool. So how do we pick a core study material in that case that we're going to do during this 1 hour of study time? At a very basic level for my core study material, I want like a pipeline of Japanese content coming to me with super low effort to get it. That might be like a shared deck on Anki that has, whatever, X thousand vocab sentences or something like that. And I'm just giving the Anki shared deck as an example. There are a lot of ways you could find a pipeline of Japanese content that you're going to explore during this study hour. Let's just say it's an Anki deck, for example. So I wouldn't be too worried about what Anki deck I was using, but I would be worried about how I use it. Specifically, there are many things I would not do with that Anki deck. Number 1, I would not have a lot of info on the back of my cards. I'd have a Japanese sentence on the front and the English translation on the back. Maybe one target word mentioned. Like if I had a target word that I was learning in that sentence, maybe that could be listed, but I don't want anything else. Oh, except audio. Like it's okay if there's audio, maybe on the front or the back, although I do think it's optional. I didn't use audio on my flashcards for the first many years, and there were some negative effects from that, but I dealt with those problems later and it wasn't the end of the world. Number 2, I would never or almost never hit the again button in Anki. I do not want my 1 hour of wonderful, cherished study time to be 45 minutes of flashcard reviews and 15 minutes of being exhausted from all the reviews. Common, useful concepts reoccur naturally in a language. So the more Japanese sentences that I encounter, the more I'm reviewing concepts that I've already learned just naturally. I'm not saying that SRS is bad. Like they can be good because they do remind you of things you might have forgotten that you've encountered before, but they're not a test. And that's why I would avoid that again button, because I don't really care if I remembered the word right then. I just want to be reminded that it exists if I'd forgotten it. And if I'm worried that I forgot it again the next time and it's like a 3-month interval, maybe then I'll hit again, maybe. Along these lines, number 3 would be no more than 15 minutes of flashcard reviews during my hour of studying. I'd probably set my max reviews per day to like 75, do like 5 per minute, and then set my new card max to like 9,999. Number 4, I would do no kanji cards. I would only do sentences, Japanese sentence on the front, English on the back. That's it. But those sentences would be written the way a Japanese person writes them, with kanji for the words. And then the back, can have the reading of any words that had kanji in them, and I'll learn them that way. No big deal. This doesn't mean I won't study kanji. Like maybe if I'm reading a sentence that has a new word and a kanji that looks interesting to me, maybe I will go look it up. Maybe I'll even look at what a mnemonic might be for that kanji, but I'm not going to put that in my flashcards. I don't want reviews for kanji ever. Number 5, no grammar flashcards. When a conjugation or a grammar pattern shows up in my flashcard that I don't know, I'll go look it up. Or if I forgot it, I'll go look it up again. I don't want grammar flashcards, and the reason I don't is because I've made lots of them over the years and I just don't like them. I don't think they're very helpful. The sentences are already teaching me grammar. Number 6, no production. And by production, I mean speaking or writing practice. I'm not saying don't ever do that. I'm saying I personally would not do that during my 1 hour of sacred study time because I don't really like doing that. Don't get me wrong, like once I'm in a lesson talking to a teacher, I often have a lot of fun and I feel very good about myself after I've done it, but I'm not going to enjoy my sacred study hour that much if I'm just getting ready to write a journal or talk to a teacher, because it's just not really my thing. And even if it was, that's not the fastest way to learn new words, and that's my main goal during this hour, and I'll talk more about why that's the case later in this video. Number 7. No drills of any kind. No conjugation drills, no exercises where there's like a prompt and a correct answer. I'm not doing anything like that during my hour. This includes English to Japanese flashcards. Basically anything where there's a supposed correct answer that I'm supposed to produce. Not during this hour. I keep saying not during this hour because I'm not saying I wouldn't ever do any of these things. I'm just saying I wouldn't do them during my 1 hour of core studying that is the most important to my studies. The reason I'm so protective of this 1 hour of study time is that it's only to improve my general comprehension of Japanese. I want to improve my comprehension as quickly as possible. And I can do that by being able to understand one sentence that's all in Japanese, and then 10, and then 100, and then 10,000, 100,000, 1 million sentences. Like once I've encountered 1 million Japanese sentences that I understand, I probably understand a lot of Japanese. And somewhere along the line, I probably hit what I like to think of as event horizon. So event horizon is the point at which you can't escape the gravity of a black hole, right? So if we have this black hole, that's life in Japanese, where once you get that good at Japanese, you're not gonna forget it because life becomes intricately tied to Japanese. You know, many of your hobbies are in Japanese. Maybe a loved one speaks Japanese with you. Maybe it's part of your work now. All these things happen to me. So I'm not going to forget Japanese. And, to cross that line, to get past event horizon, you have to get a pretty high level of comprehension so that you can actually consume enough Japanese to make that enjoyable and doable. And I'm not sure if people realize the way that this compounds over time. So, my first year studying Japanese, it's going to be a lot of effort to get through one sentence of Japanese that I understand. But now I could just go take my dog for a walk and put on a Japanese YouTube show or a podcast and listen. And I'm probably going to encounter several thousand Japanese sentences that I understand and probably a few hundred that I mostly understood, but maybe missed something. And every now and then I might just check on my phone, oh, what does that word mean? Oh yeah, okay. So you can get really good at Japanese very easily once you have such a solid foundation of the language, once you've passed the line. That is event horizon. And it's a blurry line, because each person's definition of what is life in Japanese is probably going to be a little different. So that's it. 1, find my sacred study hour and go to my study sanctuary and just really enjoy being there while I study my 2, core study material, which is a nice pipeline of Japanese sentences that I'm getting into my brain. And some of them are going to slip out the other end, but that's no big deal because I get so many of them. And then 3, just all the stuff, just having fun and getting a lot of exposure to natural Japanese in content that interests me and in situations that I find fun in the moment, and no worries when I get sick of them and drop them, because that's not the important thing. I don't have to worry about maintaining or making progress during 3, just 1. Anyway, I'll put more info in the description of this video, as well as links to anything that I mentioned if I did. And I don't want you to go yet because I don't want to make videos where we just talk about learning Japanese. Let's learn some Japanese together. So I've been listening to a lot of Japanese real estate investment YouTube channels lately. I was listening to one and it was talking about this housewife, and she is so cool. She had twins and then it caused a bunch of health problems. And so she was basically bedridden and then had trouble even leaving the house for 5 years. And then she also had a third child who had a really severe case of autism. And so, that comes with a lot of doctor's appointments and all kinds of other things. And then she also had a part-time job at a daycare. And then during all this time, she started investing in these cheap houses in the middle of nowhere in Japan and renting them out. And she built up this big portfolio that supports her whole family. And I just thought it was a really cool story. And then at the end, they're asking her about her goals for, her real estate journey. And I thought her response was really applicable to someone trying to learn Japanese also. So let's listen to what she says.
無理なく焦らず、でも物件探しは一生懸命やっていただきたいなっていうふうには思いますね。
無理なく焦らず、でも一生懸命。What did she say? Wait, 一生懸命 what was it?
無理なく焦らず、でも物件探しは一生懸命やっていただきたいなっていうふうには思いますね。
無理なく焦らず、でも物件探しは一生懸命やっていて、I keep tripping over that part. やっていただきたいな. Let's listen to that part. Well, I'll come back to that part when we do the breakdown. Anyway, I think I would translate that whole sentence as something like, the way I think of it is, I want to do my best to find new properties, but without rushing or pushing myself too hard. And so we have murinaku. So muri is impossible or not feasible. And then naku just means isn't. Aserazu. So aseru is to rush, to feel rushed, to kind of be flustered while you try to do something really fast. And then you might know that aseranai would be the vinai form. That's the negative form. Don't rush. But she says aserazu, which is the same thing as which is the same thing as aseranai. So aserazu and demo, but bukken sagashi. Bukken is properties. If you go look at a real estate site, they'll probably say bukken to number 1. we have the most properties, whatever. Sagashi is, so sagasu is to look for, to search for, and then sagashi is like the noun form. Wa is topic marking particle. So we know that what she's going to say next is related to bukken sagashi, searching for a property. She says, isshokenmei, with all of one's might, just means doing the best you can do. And then, yatte itadakitai. I keep tripping over that part. Okay, so yaru is to do, and then so yatte is the te form, do. Itadakitai, which is, so itadaku means like to humbly receive. You might know like itadakimasu, like before you eat something, or if you receive something, itadakimasu. So you drop off the mas, itadaki is the stem, put tai onto the end, and then that means want to humbly receive. And as to why she's saying yatte itadakitai, like I want to humbly receive doing, is very hard for me to explain. She's sort of just adding this nuance of humility, that this is the way that she wants to do it. Na is just a particle that indicates that she's thinking aloud or sort of directing this back at herself. And she says deyu, so like you might hear toyu sometimes, but deyu is more colloquial, just means that thing I just mentioned. And then hu ni, so hu is like way, style, and then ni is like way, style of doing. And then omoimasu is think, so omo is to think, and then she put it in mas form, omoimasu. Ne, you know, right? So let's listen one more time, see if you understand it this time.
無理なく焦らずでも物件探しは一生懸命やっていただきたいなっていうふうには思いますね。
I forgot to mention that wa right before 思いますね。ふには思いますね。So wa is another topic marking particle. And I probably need a lot of videos on wa because it's really something you get a sense for over time, and it's pretty hard to explain in English. I think we do a pretty good job at Native Shark, but you really just got to get a sense for it by hearing it over and over again. We had 無理なく焦らずでも物件探しは一生懸命I keep tripping over that part. やっていただきたいなっていうふうには思いますね。So we could just take out where it says bukken sagashi and just put benkyo, right? Because we're talking about Japanese, studying Japanese. 無理なく焦らずでも勉強は一生懸命やっていただきたいなっていうふうには思いますね。The way I think of it is, I want to do my best to study, but without rushing or pushing myself too hard. I hope you feel like that too. And I hope you like this video. Thank you for your time.
この番組はフューチャーラーニングメソッドネイティブシャークがお送りしました。